So I'm Dana Bernard. I'm a visual artist. I live currently in Durham, North Carolina, a recent transplant from California, the San Francisco area. And I'm a nurse by trade and do instructional design as in education as my work. But my passion is, I guess, design in general. And I am a I've done a variety of different types of art. I've recently graduated from art school. I have a degree in studio arts that's kind of late in life. And as a part of that exploration, I discovered how much I enjoy sculpture and the idea of mixing kind of unusual types of medium. Like my goal while here at Azule was to mix repurposed items, which I like to work a lot with, paper and wool through needle felting, which is kind of like a weird combination of things. And I got interested in doing that from my sculpture teacher, actually, in school, where she was mixing stone with needle felting, which were two very opposite things. So my work has varied from, you know, more mundane types of things, but what I'm probably really better at is conceptualizing things out of my head, right? I'm not really a great recreator of reality, but I do use a lot of natural types of elements, colors, and different forms that I gain inspiration from nature, I think. I find being in nature very inspiring. It is one of the great pluses of being here at Azule is this quiet, serene, very green area that I was here for the majority of the time by myself, which was just quite a lovely opportunity to just be free to do whatever I wanted to do, right? You know, like at home in my studio, I have the shouldn't I be working? Should I be weeding my yard? You know, oh, I've got to do my laundry, right? We're here. It's like, yeah, anything that came to my mind, I can't do anything about. So I can just go back to exploring the work. And I brought a whole carload of stuff that I've gathered. I even picked up some items at thrift stores on my way here. And I just laid it all out on the tables and just kind of started dabbling. Like all of the reasons why I got all those materials were to explore what I might do with them. And I was able to kind of just do that. And it took me in an interesting direction, which was I was actually kind of inspired by I was recently in Chicago. I was at the Chicago Institute of Art, and there was an Asian painting section that had a lot of red and black and white and kind of some constriction and colors and form that was kind of inspiring me when I got here. And so I just started by just doing something, right, which was my first piece, which was the pink piece, which is called Inside. It's using all these little rubber tubes and cutting them different lengths. I was actually inspired by Camille's Fibonacci music room here, and that idea of like the measurement. So I kind of went down, I started measuring and cutting all these and creating this piece of art just to kind of get started. And then I started, okay, so now I need to go with like, you know, the black and red and the kind of Asian thing that I was kind of drawn to here. And it kind of morphed into a couple of pieces of just scrap wood that I cut some paper and basically decoupaged on and used some reeds to create like a floor, and then needle felting to create some plants. There was another piece that's got kind of a pink paper that I've cut and then put on that has some reeds. I'm not quite done with that piece yet. And then that led me to the taller, which was originally my plan to do the black and red and white, which was the what was a wine tree, like for wine bottles, that I then painted and used paper to kind of some homemade paper to kind of camouflage the leaves on it. I cut the grapes off of it, and then have been using the bottle holders to create what is kind of like somewhat like flowers. They they've turned a bit sexualized, which is, I'm kind of Georgia O'Keefeing it maybe. As I kind of did them, I named, the piece is not done yet, but I've named it Leaf of Life, because there were these flowers that I was inspired for that were kind of these hanging, kind of Asian looking flowers. Pardon me. And then as I started, messing around with them, needle felting them, and then kind of trying to get them to go onto the tree, they kind of became something else, which I thought was really interesting. So far I've got, the actual wine tree done. And then now I've got all the bases for all the flowers, for all the holders. And then now I'm adding some color to them. So I've got 3 of those done. I didn't quite finish that piece, but I'm on a good path now and know what to do when I get home. I could just finish up those bases that I've started. So it's been a really interesting, just freeing journey, to come here and just have time to work a bit, take a break a bit. I took 4th of July. I went to Lake Junaluska and kayaked, did some paddling there. That was great. And a couple trips into town. I went to Asheville and Hot Springs and Marshall to kind of check out the area. And having Camille here stop by and collaborating with her and hearing her stories, very inspirational. And this whole place is, it is a work of art in itself. And then today or yesterday, being joined by Vivian, who you'll be talking to next, it's been nice for us to just share a moment of our work with each other. And I can see how inspirational that is. If, being here by yourself is one thing, it's very freeing, but then having that collaboration to just talk to somebody else about their work has also, added another dimension. And I can see how, this place is really built for that.
That's great. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm really glad to hear that you've had a really positive experience. And yeah, it's nice to hear you talk a little bit more about your work kind of behind the scenes because folks will see pictures of the work, but I think everyone always likes hearing more about how the process is done. You answered a lot of my questions, but it kind of led me to think of some more as you were talking. I'm really curious about your professional work of instructional design and its connection to your fine art practice. And I'm curious how they play into one another or how they differ in your experience, how they check different boxes for you. I'm wondering if you could talk just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I guess I never really realized how connected they are, that I've always had this creative spirit when I was young, and I did love art, making art when I was young. And then as I became first a nurse and then an educator, like that fell away. Like I would draw periodically, but I never really got to spend any time on it. But what I always realized I enjoyed was the creativity of my work, right? Once I became an educator, where I was in control of, so to speak, as in control we are, right? Of like designing an experience, an educational experience that's fun and educating at the same time rather than just being talked at, right? Which is what so many educators do. I saw it was fun for me. That was really the main reason I did it. But also it's fun for the people that are learning. I saw how much they enjoyed it. So that actually became the focus of my educational practice, and very successful in going from the hospital to eventually a private career college and then my own nonprofit, educating in a very learner-centered way. And I was able to like add that creativity to what I always did that I think fed that for me, right? That creative spirit. And then once I had more time in my life to kind of go back to art, I realized, oh, that's really how I fed that creativity all this time. And that I, my, what I, that experimental spirit, that entrepreneurial spirit that I have, I think also gives me courage in my art making practice. And I remember one of my mentor oil painting instructors, after the first semester, I was just like, oh, I'm so awful at this. I'm not really sure I should go on, but I wanted to do it as part of, my learning. And I did eventually get better at it. And we had our first show at the end of the semester, and she would say a little bit about everybody's stuff, and she was like, first I want to call out Dan. I was like, oh my gosh, what is she going to say about me? And she's like, you have so much courage. And I was just like, wow, really? And she said, because the thing about art, right, that holds people back, including me many times, is the idea of like, if I do this, is it going to work? Is it going to look right? La la la. Where I just go for it. Like, and that's why I went from acrylic to oil painting, is because you can erase it so easily, which is why I think I drew for as many years as I did with a pencil, right? I erase it many times. But with the oil painting, if I don't like it, I can take it off and start again, right at that moment. And I realized, oh, okay. And she goes, you should just embrace that more, don't I think a lot about what I do, right? I might conceptualize something for weeks or months, and then I just sit down and go for it. Which is, my moments of waiting, I guess, is my thought process. But I figure, like, what happens if I don't do it right? I do testing on other things and try to figure out how materials are going to work, and before I put it on a piece. But if it doesn't work out, like, okay, that's, what harm has happened in me doing that other than me just having fun? So
That's great. I love that connection of courage. That's a really great reflection of just the artist practice in general, I think. Um, what is your preferred media to work in and why?
yeah, I really do like the idea of repurposing items to make something different from them. One, to, in the sense of, recycling, but also just to change something. And I was talking to my roommate here last night about, I need to get some better, like, building skills, like learn how to weld and stuff like that, so I can do a little bit more of that. But I try to take something that I see and then make something different out of it, right? To reuse it. And I'm really enjoying that. And I think my sculpture instructor kind of inspired me to that. She had us do, things like an empathy project and various things where we would, alter a book and recreate something visually in another type of material. And I think that's what really inspired me. And the idea of working with my hands to do something, I think is also something that I really enjoy. I'm a kinesthetic learner, so for me, that's very satisfying. I guess mixed media today, I guess, would be normally in the sculpture form.
That's great. Thank you. My last question is just thinking back on your time at Azul, reflecting on your stay, what is your advice for incoming residents? Do you think there should be these clear goals and expectations, or was your kind of way of creative wayfinding fulfilling for you? What would you offer to incoming residents for what you gain from your time here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be either way, that if there was a particular, like, for instance, I was in another residency this year and I did have a goal, right? I was collaborating with somebody to illustrate a book that she was writing. And we had a clear goal of, like, by the time this week is over, this is what we want to have accomplished, which was great. It gave me the structure to know, like, how much I needed to accomplish every day and still have a glass of wine with my friend and all of that. But here was a little bit different, where I knew that I wanted to work with these particular constraints of my, to kind of create something, but I didn't have to walk. I knew that I wanted to come out with at least one piece completed right after all this time. But the fact that I just dabbled and started worked for me as well. So, I mean, I really think it just depends on the person's goals and what their experience is. But to be able to just have the freedom to come and just play and not have a defined goal is also very empowering, I found, and inspirational.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Dana. I look forward to sharing your work and this interview with our community. Is there anything else that you want to share?
Just thank you so much, for this opportunity. I hope to come back, and I've learned a lot about the area, actually, from Camille, and some great referrals that she's given me, that I hope to get more involved in, and hopefully see her again. So it's been just really an amazing experience.